This video is to teach how to solve percent problems using proportions. As we've discussed in class, proportions are extraordinarily important as you get in more advanced math. The equation you'll be using today to help you is x over 100 equals is over of. X is always the percent. So if I need to find out 45% of n is 9. N is a number I don't know, it's an unknown, and I have to find it. What's going to help me find it is this equation. So I'm going to fill in what I know. X is the percent, and therefore I know 45 is our percent. So we're going to put 45 over that 100. It will always be over 100, okay, in the beginning. Equals is 9. See how is and 9 are almost attached? So we're going to put the is on top. Of is n. See how the of and the n are almost attached? That's our n. Now this is a little magic here, so pay attention. 100 times 9 is 900. 45 times n is 45n. That has to equal this, meaning our equation is 45n equals 900. Just like in one-step equations that we solved before, we would want to get the n by itself. We don't really care what 45n is, we just want to know what n is. How am I going to get rid of the 45? Got to get that away from there. We're going to do the opposite of what's there right now, and it's multiply, so we're going to divide using a division bar, both sides by 45. That will cancel out on the left, leaving us only with n, which is what we want to know, is what n is. Equals, now on my calculator, if I've shown all this work on my calculator, I can go ahead and do 900 divided by 45, and I get 20. Well, what does that mean? It means that 45% of 20 is 9. If only 45% of my students pass their test, that would mean 9 out of my 20 students pass their test. Okay, let's try another one. You can use these to solve all kinds of percentage questions. This one reads, 22 is 8% of what number? Let's try to apply our formula, our equation. So we already know 8 is our percent. So we're going to write 8 over 100. Our is 22. You see that? So that means 22 is our is. Of what number? We don't know. That's our n. That's our unknown. Now we're going to do that cross-multiplying magic again. 100 times n is 2200. I said that wrong. 100 times 22 is 2200. N times 8 is 8n. Let's make that into an equation. 8n equals 2200. It's just 8n up here has to equal 2200 over here. Now I want to get rid of the 8. Divide both sides by 8. N equals, now that I've shown all my beautiful work, I'm going to do 2200 divided by 8 on my calculator, and I get 275. A much bigger number. What does that mean? What that means is that 22 is 8% of 275. So if 275 people were at the picnic and 22 of them brought drinks, that's only 8%. 22 is 8% of 275. 22 is 8% of 275. Let's try another one. This reads 5 is what percent of 25? Like if 5 snacks that were brought to the movie day were healthy out of 25 total, what percent is that? Okay, we can use our equation to help us find that. Well, we don't know the percent in this one. So we're going to leave the x over 100 equals, so that means we have to know our is and we have to know our of. They both must be here. Let's see if they are. 5 is our is. Our 25 is our of. We can still use our magic in cross multiplying. 100 times 5 is 500. 25 times x is 25x. So 25x, better go down here, I'm running out of room, equals 500. Where'd you get that equation, Mrs. Gormo? Here's my 25x, here's my 500. Divide both sides by 25 to get the x by itself. If I've shown my work so beautifully because I want to do advanced math sometime in my life, I can do 500 divided by 25. And that is 20. So that means 5 is 20% of 25. Gotta add my percent sign if I'm finding a percent. So 5 is 20% of 25, meaning if 5 snacks were healthy out of 25, that's 20% of the snacks were healthy. On number 4, we're doing a similar problem, but it's worded differently. Is that going to be the same? Let's see. What percent of 16 is 2? What percent? That means we don't know our percent. We will put x and leave x over 100 like we had it in the original equation. Okay, so what percent of 16 is 2? Our is 2. Of is 16. It's like they're attached. The word of and the 16, they're attached. Let's use our handy dandy magic cross multiplying. 100 times 2 is 200. 16 times x is 16x. So 16x equals 200 is our equation. We would divide both sides by 16 to get rid of that. Then 200 divided by 16 I can do on my calculator, and I get 12.5. What? 12.5%? Yes, there's such a thing as a 0.5%. And now that we're ready for it, we are working with 0.5%. So that means 2 out of 16. If 2 out of 16 people had brought back their flat rock forms, that's only 12.5% of the kids. This one's worded differently yet. Find 65% of 180. All right, but let's see what we do know. Do we know our percent? Yes, we do. It's 65. So 65 out of 100. We have to know either our is or our of. We know our of. We don't know our is, which means we don't know our is. We can put n there. That's our unknown. We do know our of. That's 180. 100 times n is 100n. 180 times 65. Don't know that one. Got to do that on my calculator too. 11,700. Okay, so 100N equals 11,700. Looks so scary, but you just divide by 100 to get rid of the 100. N equals, you can do that on your calculator, and it's 117. What does that mean? Well, if I got 65% of my test right, and there were 180 questions, that would mean 117 questions were right. Of course, these work for word problems too. Let's read this. The sale price of the Apple TV Generation 8 is $225. I think there's only 4 generations right now, so it's going to be really expensive when it gets to the 8th one. This is 75% of the original price. Okay, it's on sale, saving some money. Find the original price. Well, I know my percent, and that's always easy to pick out, so let's pick that out. 75 over 100 equals, I see the word is, do you? Okay, so 225 is our is. Of the original price. So we don't know it. That's what we're trying to find. So that's our N. And yes, you can still do your fancy cross multiplying. 100 times 225 is 225 with 2 zeros on the end. 22,500. And N times 75 is 75N. Let's make that into an equation. 75N equals 22500. Divide both sides by 75 to get rid of that 75. Now I've shown all my beautiful work. I'm allowed to use a calculator if I've done all that. And 22500, 22,500 divided by 75 is 300. We're talking money. Put a label. What does that mean? It means that the original price of the Apple TV Generation 8, it was $300. We're paying $225 of it. It's definitely on sale. Here's another word problem. There were 135 customers at Gormel's Grub on New Year's Eve 2016. This was 150 people. This was 150% of the business they had on New Year's Eve 2015. How many people were there in 2015? Let's see what we know. Do we have a percent? Yes, we do. 150. 150 over 100 equals, now we need an is and an of. So let's look for what we don't know. Of the business they had on New Year's Eve 2015, how many people were there then? We don't know how many people there were in 2015. That's our of. We don't know the of. Our of is our N. We do know the is. There are, there were, there is 135. So again, 100 times 135 is 13500, basically, meaning put 2 zeros on the end. And then N times 150 is 150N. So 150N equals 13,500. Divide both sides by 150. On my calculator, I will do 13500 divided by 150, and I get 90 people. It's a word problem. We need a word in our answer. And so 90 is how many came in 2015. 135 is how many came in 2016. Does that make sense? Yes, because it was 150 people of how many they had, 150% of how many they had the year before. Was it more in 2016? Yes, it was. It was 150% of what they had the year before. Let's do one more word problem and then we're going to call it a day. This says right now it costs 20% of what it did in 2010 to produce a DVD. It's gotten a lot cheaper. In 2010, it cost $20. What does it cost now? Let's see what we can find. We know that we have our percent, okay, because it's here. So 40 over 100 equals, okay, we have to find our is and we have to find our of. Right now, we don't know what it is. We don't know what it is right now. But we do know in 2010, of what it did in 2010, it was 20 then. The hardest part about these word problems is figuring out what's your is and what's your of. And that just has to make sense. It's cheaper now, so my smaller number is going to be on the top. And we know it's going to cost less than 20, so the bigger number would be on the bottom. That's kind of how I think through it. Going to do our cross multiplying, 100 times n. Well, I know 2 times 4 is 8. Add 2 zeros and I have 800. So then 100n equals 800. Divide both sides by 100. That's $8. Does it make sense? Well, $8 is what it costs now. In 2010, it was more expensive. In 2010, it was $20. That makes sense. It costs less now. Make sure you're taking notes as you listened today to the video. Rewind as you need to.